We are here in Central Park, boys.
Central Park, New York.
In the great city of New York City, New York. And we're having a little collab podcast here with Captain Kirk.
El Capitano.
El Capitano.
El Capitano. I'm Mexican.
Kirk. And if you're tuning in from the Kirk podcast, we are
the Kirk
Valor
cast.
Coffee. Why would you want to have a podcast with us?
Well,
why are you sitting here?
Three handsome baristas. But we've been in contact a little bit throughout the last couple of months. Obviously seen the content you guys are doing. Love it. And, it wouldn't be a trip to America without coming on the #1 American coffee podcast. So
ours?
Yes.
Yeah. That's
Well,
what
I mean,
was thinking.
who else comes close? I mean, like, no one. So, thank you for the invitation, and I'm so glad we caught up. We just had a brilliant salmon and cream cheese bagel, the four of us.
Spoiled.
We're gonna go get some dessert pizza after this, which is just pizza you have after. It's like, we just want 2 lunches, but we'll call it dessert
No
pizza.
hot fudge on the pizza,
It's just normal
unfortunately.
And, you guys have been throwing out some rage bait as well. So, let's
rage on.
We got to discuss it.
I want to ask you a question, Kirk. Why is it so hard for people to accept pre-batched espresso in cafes today?
Oh, because it's such a foreign idea. And the idea has come from specialty. It's not come from Starbucks or, Luckin Coffee, or what's another big one in America? Pete's.
Duncan?
Yeah, so it's not come from one of those things and applied and filtered down or trickled down to specialty. It's come from specialty, which I think is probably like one of the biggest points of contention. But it kind of addresses it, and throughout the discussions that we've all had today, like the service style in Australia for coffee is completely different to America. Like the per capita coffee consumption in Australia, it must be higher. Like, I don't know, I don't have access to any statistics on that, but a lot of people drink coffee, and multiple times a day. And we're also discussing the unit economics of making a coffee in America compared to Australia. So we just got a 5% minimum wage increase, which takes the effective minimum wage for a coffee shop in Australia to about $38 an hour, which if we do a currency conversion, I think it's about $31, $32 US. That's the minimum wage for a barista in Australia. And we also charge less for a coffee. So you can see where the problem lies. And some interesting analysis has indicated that cafes that are profitable in Australia make an average profit margin of 2 to 3%. Like, in what industry is that good?
Yeah, I mean, if you take the wage number from face value, if we were paying $32 an hour for baristas, we would be negative 10+%, I would say.
Yeah, that's fair. Which is funny.
Yeah,
really funny. Because
so there's ways that you seem to be operating more efficiently than we are, and especially it sounds like we're charging more for drinks in general than you guys are. So it's baffling.
But having said all that, we all understand that being a barista is not a windfall profession. It's not going to pay a mortgage these days. It's not really, imagine being a barista in New York City where the rents are unbelievably high. But this is where I feel like the future of the barista profession is, because the capacity to automate things is here, and it's very strong. No coffee shop in the world really needs a barista anymore, if you think about it. Every single coffee shop in the world, theoretically, could be entirely automated. That's possible. That exists now. But obviously we don't like that. And even with the pre-batch thing, I don't want to, my motivation for it is because it can be, a collaboration with humans. And when you're at a shop, you're not banging things, and it's much more efficient. And so, hypothetically speaking, if a future exists where you can pay baristas even more, but you're going to have a lot less, the human resources are becoming out of reach for cafes, particularly in Australia, and where speaking for our industry, and you obviously everyone just heard the 2 to 3% number for profit margins, which is, knock it down a few percent and you're in the negatives. The average cafe is in the negative. So, but that's where I think the future of the coffee industry is. Like, we'll actually be paying far more for baristas, but you'll have a lot less of them, and the productivity per person will be a lot higher.
Yeah, I think we've seen in our comment section since we started talking about pre-batching espresso that idea is very
hard for people to accept.
Yeah, well, it's just the idea, because I mean, it's the same thing in general with other automation and AI, that these things create extra efficiencies, which create a need for less overall labor. And so I guess maybe the contrarian take is, where does that labor go if it's not in the coffee industry, or if it's not in the tech industry or whatever? Which, I guess I understand that from that perspective, but a lot of times where people, especially maybe hobbyists or baristas who aren't intimately familiar with a P&L, and I guess you could say it's our job to educate people on that, and like, if we're running a profitable business, don't understand that long term this probably isn't a viable option, as a business owner, because that's where I think, especially in America, a lot of there is a conversation of raise barista wages, which seems like for you is a thing that has happened. But in reality, most people aren't running profitable businesses to start. So there's not really room to do that without shuttering.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think this idea of pre-batching espresso has like worldwide reach in specialty coffee, because I feel like specialty coffee as an industry is pretty like globalized, there's a lot of through lines, but it's interesting to see that it'll be good, especially since this is going to be on our podcast too, for you just to share the origin of how you came up with this. But this automation, it's sounding like it's not coming from a place of like, how do I take my profit margin from 25 to 30%, but it's like, how do I survive the system changes of where I'm locally operating my cafe? It's like, it's not unto cutting staff because you just want to make way more money. It's like, hey, I'm just trying to like run this thing.
Yeah.
And we were just sharing, like, it sounds like we almost do similar volume of business, but we have like 5 to 6 people on at a time, whereas you're kind of more constrained to like have 3 people on at a time. And so there's certain like hospitality limitations to that as well.
But I think it also speaks to the skill set of Australian baristas. And, like, we were talking before about how Melbourne people love to come overseas and crow on about how our coffee's so much better than everyone else. And, which I don't like to hear, but the skill set that you're required to have to work in a busy Melbourne coffee shop is exceptional. And when you go work in other places overseas, the skills are evident. And that is latte art that's really good, milk texturing that's really good, speed, organization, because you have to have those things.
Yeah. So where does that come from? That just great training, you think?
Well, good training, but also adapting to the conditions. Because, like I said, I've been in America and Canada for 3 weeks now, and I've not seen one coffee shop that's like busier than the busiest Australian coffee shop. Like, we were just in Watch House, and that was enormously busy. But there's a few venues in Melbourne that are just they do far more than that. It's because the coffee consumption is really high. But there's just some dynamic, like there's some differences in the coffee scene that just culturally you just kind of had to adapt to it.
Yeah, this is something that we talked about on Barista Skill, our last episode, which was, for many years, baristas will say, I deserve a higher wage because of the skills that I'm bringing. Because, especially before home brewing was more prevalent, the only place you could get a good cappuccino or flat white, in your case, is at a good specialty coffee shop. But now that that's way more available at home, And then to add on to that, you have more automation in cafes that's taking away the need for that barista skill, specifically with steaming milk, latte art, dialing in espresso, working cleanly, all these sort of things involved in bar flow. So the more that that's becoming obsolete, and the more that, when I see videos of your cafe, I'm like, what exactly are these baristas being paid for?
Well, it's an interesting question, and I think the going forward, it's going to be knowledge. This is just my hypothesis. Whether or not it becomes true or not remains to be seen. But I think, and this is a good point of comparison, I think, but for Australian baristas versus American baristas, because I actually do think American baristas have better coffee knowledge than Australian baristas. They're generally speaking, I think they do, because if you go, they talk about roast levels, they talk about the farm, they talk about a bunch of different technical things. I brewed this at this pump pressure with pre-infusion, all that sort of stuff. On average, you don't hear that in Australia. I think, here's your coffee, and I don't think the average barista is in Australia, specialty barista, is as knowledgeable as the average specialty barista in America. I truly believe that.
And to pause there, it's kind of, I always think about supply and demand with that. Like, is the culture of Australian coffee consumers interested in the story of how that coffee got there? Or is that kind of like the end all be all, is coffee is a drink that I buy and that's it,
I think yes, that to the latter point. Yeah, I think they're not as interested, generally speaking. That's not everyone, obviously, but generally speaking, I'll have my flat white, thanks. And there's not too much more beyond that. I think the typical American consumer is also more inquisitive about their coffee, which perhaps you'd never thought of that, but if you come to Australia, I think you'll agree. But there's something I thought about before I really wanted to mention is that, how we have this discussion pretty frequently in coffee of the need to pay producers more and ensure the financial viability of that. I actually think we're heading there with coffee shops too. Because, again, we're in New York City right now, right? There's not really many independent coffee shops that can make it here in Manhattan, for example.
Sounds like a challenge.
You can try, but Watch House that we were just at, it's part of a big group that's also in the Middle East and in Europe.
Le Cabra, same example.
That's not necessarily an independent coffee shop anymore, although it's very good. There's one exception is Arcane, but from my understanding, there's a few founders for that too. But we're heading there with coffee shops, because you look at the way rents are going in cities for commercial spaces, like it's getting unviable for independent coffee shops. And in Australia, the wage is extremely high, and hence where we're almost at average zero net profit. I think we need to almost start thinking about the coffee shop in the same way, perhaps not the same, but in a similar light, because without these coffee shops flourishing, we're just not going to have them. And, somewhere in the line, we're going to have that discussion as well. It's like, okay, we've been very good at having this dialogue about paying producers more. And sadly, the effectiveness of that hasn't been realised, but the dialogue's there, the understanding of the need for it. But to be honest, I feel like that dialogue, we're going to have to start having it with cafes too.
Well,
agree, disagree?
No, I mean, I think it's a good point that we were talking about, especially there's a certain extent of get more efficient or die, And so the question really becomes, do we as a culture want coffee shops to exist? And if we aren't becoming more efficient, especially rising costs across the board, then it just doesn't really work.
Look at Blank Street. That's probably like the best example of a chain that kind of has independent vibes. They've done their branding really well and pretty good quality drinks as well. They're doing it off an Eversys, which is largely automated. They're doing mostly matcha now. My understanding is they sell more matcha than coffee.
Whoa.
And they're crushing it, and they're paying their staff well. They're some of the highest paid baristas in America. So everyone likes to look at Blank Street and kind of judge them and, say nasty things in specialty, but it's actually a success story that's done really well, and it's kind of like a model for what specialty coffee should be doing. Not everyone will appreciate me saying that, but
anytime I hear someone hating on someone like that, my first thought is, well, you try.
yeah, well,
Like, how are you going to make something that large? There's absolutely nothing wrong with being large in and of itself, a large company. I get that there's like more stuff that can happen that it causes injustice in large companies. There's nothing wrong with being a large company, but like you try to do that at scale and have that same level of excellence as they have. Like, sure, it's not going to be as high end as some of these shops we've been to today, but like, don't hate people if you know nothing about how to do what they do.
people, as I'm learning with the internet, people are always going to have their opinions, and all you can manage is your own expectations. Yeah. But like, it's a success story, to be frank. And so like, I'm pretty impressed with what they've done, and I've been going to Blank Street and getting myself a coconut iced matcha. What of it? We do it.
I'm not too familiar. Are we calling that a specialty coffee shop? It's like different than Starbucks or Dunkin', right? It's like would be in the specialty.
But they would be serving the same quality of specialty coffee that a lot of specialty coffee shops do, and to a higher level of effectiveness.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious, kind of tangential, but it comes together. Is there a growing group of home brewers in Australia with like the home gear, the really boutique coffees?
Absolutely.
Because that's I think the big divide that we've been talking about a lot too, is like there's this, I can now do this myself at home, but then people I think are wanting something more commercialized out of specialty coffee, which is I want the like fresh made to order experience, but I'm in a line of 30 people and it needs to go, 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 go. And so it's kind of forcing the hand of automation in a sense.
But are cafes competing with home baristas now? Like, because why would you go to a cafe? And this kind of ties into the whole economics and payment for barista stuff. It is a moral injustice that you can be a really skilled barista with great knowledge, great skills, and you still pretty much just get paid the minimum wage. And that's not really, it's largely, I don't think, something that coffee shop owners impose on baristas. It's the unfortunate economic sort of situation of coffee shops in general. So, and linking that back to home brewers, like, yeah, of course, if you can just, I went into a coffee shop the other day just near the World Trade Center, or the Ground Zero Memorial, and I saw a barista and the way they were making coffee. I was in the line, and I was like, I'm gonna get a coffee, and then I saw the way he was making it, and I walked straight out. I was like, abort mission. So, like, just save myself the $8. It does happen, and that's a situation where my version, I'm traveling, so I can't just make myself coffee. It's like, I'd rather not have it at all. You're gonna knock over the camera puppy? No, he looks so good.
Well, I think for me, my personal opinion is I am almost certainly likely to make a better cup of coffee, technically, finished product at home than I can get in any coffee shop. Pretty much always at this point, just because home gear is so good. You have more time and attention to put towards your one specific coffee than serving people at scale. So we've been having this conversation a lot of, is coffee in the way that was a lot of people's mission, kind of what a lot of people were trying to achieve is hard to achieve at scale. Some people can do it and some people do it well. There's always the exception to the rule, the equivalent to Michelin star restaurants who are making crazy product. But is there going to be a diversion where, like what we're saying, it's like you have to, and especially in America, and for us, like, I don't drink lavender vanilla lattes. Like, no one sitting here does. But we sure as hell sell lavender vanilla lattes because that's what our demographic wants. And if we didn't do it, we would, especially in our area, if we only served, a very purest form of coffee, we would go out of business, just like simply. And we can try to educate in certain ways, and plenty of people have taken that journey towards drinking coffee in the way that we like to drink coffee. But yeah, I think, but to that point, we maybe could do that in New York City. So just taking a step back, I don't think that we gave a proper intro for our audience. You're very known in the coffee industry for doing pre-batch espresso. Can you give our audience just kind of a picture of how you got there and what the reception has been so far?
Yeah, so I kind of explained it a little bit to you guys off camera before, but so I've been thinking about it for quite a few years because I studied economics for a little bit, and I really appreciate being able to make things more efficient. And it's pretty evident in the way I make coffee and at our shop. But one day we had a staff member that was unwell and couldn't come to work. And in Melbourne, the busiest day of the week is Thursday because Friday everyone works from home now. So Thursday is like the main event.
Wow.
And it's always the busiest day of the week.
Not Saturday?
Not Saturday. And so we thought, oh shit, there's no one else that can work. And so I thought, well, if there's ever a day to try that thing out, it's tomorrow. It's on this Thursday. So I started making the espresso for the whole day for all the flat whites. And mind you, we serve 3 different blends for like a milk coffee every day. So you've got 3 options to choose from. And so I made all the espresso in advance for each one. And
On what machine? What are you working on?
so we got a La Marzocco Linear PB. So made it all manually off that, and we dispensed it out of sauce bottles. So you just put 20 mils in for each cup, and that's a shot. So in the time, I noticed Americans make a lot of double shots for your milk drinks as well, right? It's like double shots is the pretty much the
we
standard.
gotta get into that.
We'll get into that later, but so 20 mils of espresso per cup, and in the time that it would take like to make 3 double shot handles, I can have 30 bases ready. The speed at which you can produce is very quick. And so I told a good friend of mine, Matt Perger, who you guys know, about what I was planning to do as well, because he and I had been discussing this for years. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to try this tomorrow because I absolutely need to. Do you want to come have a look? He's like, yeah, I'll come watch, and if it gets out of hand, I'll help. And then, yeah, didn't even need him. We were just flying through, and I was like, my gosh, because we also we use a lot of automation like the Uber Milk, which steams our milk for us. So one person can really lock in and make a lot of coffee. And so that was the first day where it's like, okay, it worked. And we kept doing it for a little while to assess people's perception of quality. So it's like, would people think that this is any lesser of a coffee if they didn't know?
And quick interjection, what was your perception of the quality when you were doing it?
I was happy enough to do it. Like, this is my own shop, and, I'm willing to, I tried it and I was like, I see absolutely nothing wrong with this. And so it's always different when you're doing it with your own money, right? When you're putting your own balls on the line. And you got bills to pay. You're responsible for other people's salary and feeding them. So you got to consider these things really regularly. And I didn't see. I thought that I was impressed with the quality enough that I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Mm-hmm. But we kept doing it for weeks after to see if anyone would comment at all on the quality. And only one person who saw us piping the sauce in. We call it sauce. I call it Sauce Castillo. I'll tell you why in a moment. But he saw us piping and he's like, what are you doing there? I was like, you don't know this, but you've been drinking this for a few weeks. I've been experimenting with a new, way of kind of making coffee. And they're like,
And is it cold?
yes,
So you would pull the shots and then put them in a batch and then refrigerate it?
yes.
Okay.
And then, honestly, I think we got like more comments. People like, wow, this is really good. And anytime someone said it, you're just like, yeah, it was just hilarious. So we kept doing it, and that was the only time anyone raised anything was that guy. Obviously, I went public about it with our new thing, with our new shop, And that's where the online fury has begun, because again, it's something so foreign and people feel like something is so wrong with it. And it's not like I don't get it. I think if any of us had seen that 5 years raw dog, no introduction, no nothing, you'd think, the fuck? Pardon my language. And then I do get the skepticism, but to me, it just makes a great deal of sense, because if I wanted to now go open 5 shops, one espresso machine can power 5 shops. And you think of the amount of capital that's required for a coffee shop, it's enormous. It's like
keep us from opening coffee shops.
Yeah,
frankly.
It's too much. It's too much, and that's what we're imposing on the whole world, really. So you need the espresso machine, the grind by weight grinders, which you need to sort of keep up with pace these days. And I fundamentally think that the level of investment required for opening a shop relative to the return you can get is just too high. To be frank, because you think the fit out, the machinery. So you put that into context. Nowadays, you don't necessarily really need an espresso machine. You could, long black and espresso sales for my shop probably account for like 5% of the overall sales, like Americanos. So you could feasibly just get rid of it and save yourself a whole lot of time and hassle and just do pre-batched espresso and drip coffee, and you'd be a perfectly functional, appealing to most people cafe. But say, for example, again, if I went to open 5 shops, that's 4 less espresso machines I need. That's, for my case, what's 3 times 5 is 15 less grinders. So 15 grinders at $7 a pop, that's what? $105,000. 4 espresso machines at 30 grand a pop Australian, $120,000 less you need for espresso machines. Then the operating expense, which is lower because you're using less staff. If you want to go deeper into the morals of it, think of the carbon emissions from not having to have all those extra things,
or the electrical needed is always so expensive.
So this is the motivation for it. The future of it is so that people they don't have to invest as much. And you think about the application to other things. I've seen in America, a lot of people from seemingly, you've got a lot of undocumented immigrants in America, right? We spoke about that. That's not something that exists in Australia because of we're an island, a great big island that's too far away. You can't catch a boat there, or just cross the border. But a lot of the undocumented immigrants, I suspect, they work in carts and things like that. These sort of informal jobs. For them, they could go to pre-batch espresso system and have an income. And you apply that to people in developing countries. There's a startup called Jago Coffee in Indonesia, and I interviewed the founder. His name's Yoshua Tanu, and so there's in Indonesia, cart food is enormous in Jakarta, and so people ride their bikes or carts because the traffic there is horrendous and the infrastructure is horrendous. So that's how a lot of people make an income. And these people have rolled out hundreds, if not thousands, of these carts of people making iced lattes on the street. Mm-hmm. And pre-batch espresso, they did it. They did it before I did. And there's a great moral good to come of it. People can be judgmental online, but for reasons that we just outlined, both financial, environmental, morally, it's a sound idea.
I think the guest perception part of it is so interesting because in Australia, especially, you can't open a coffee shop in the US without several people coming in per week saying, "Oh, this is good, but have you had Australian cafes? It's even better." So you would think in that culture of all the people in the world, they would scoff at pre-batch espresso, but they didn't. And so that makes me think of this Instagram reel that we did last week. That was a blind taste test of iced lattes, and I set up outside one of our locations and I had pre-batch espresso in a bottle. I had fresh espresso, obviously, that I was brewing, and then I just made like iced lattes. Because for us, that's the application that we're currently using it in, is our iced lattes, which we should talk about. But I would hand people 2 drinks, pre-batch and fresh, and ask them which one they preferred. And most of them said pre-batched by a little bit. So it was like very split, leaning a little bit towards pre-batch. And then I started asking people, if you walked into our cafe and ordered an iced latte, paid $6 or $7 for it, and then saw us pour the espresso from a bottle, what would you think of the value of that drink? And it was pretty split, but most of them said like, oh, I wouldn't like that. Like, I don't think that, you know, you're putting as much craft into the beverage and that diminishes the value, right? Whereas some people are like, I don't know if it tastes good. That's awesome. And so then it brought up this conversation between the 3 of us last week that was, if you were to ask, this was Ethan's point, but if you were to ask a chef, like if a chef was to come to your table and say, all right, so we've got 2 steaks on the menu tonight. They're both the same price. One of them is going to be fresh, prepared from raw all the way to perfect medium rare. The other one is going to be sort of like a pre-prepped, like sous vide, and then I'll just kind of sear it to order. Which one would you prefer? Like, I think everyone would say, like the first one. Like, I want it to be fresh, right? But then, you know, it comes out to the table and it's exactly the same product. And maybe even the sous vide one is, especially at scale in that kitchen, more consistent overall when they're doing a bunch of steaks per night. So the takeaway for me is, yes, we should ask for guest feedback, but to tether every decision we make in our business to what they say isn't actually what's best for them all the time, especially when you're doing it at scale, at high volumes. So that experiment was very interesting to me, but the mental gymnastics of like, okay, so these are my valued customers telling me not to do this. What do I do with that?
Well, it's a really interesting analogy used, but let's change the dish, right? Let's talk pesto pasta.
Oh.
So with a pre-batched, a flat white made using pre-batched espresso, it's not a pre-made coffee. It's assembled. So with using ingredients, the pre-batched espresso is one of the ingredients, and then we steam the milk fresh, right? That is the latte, and it tastes every bit as good as, you know, as you just explained, a freshly made one, with very minor differences. But let's talk about this this pesto pasta. Do you think they're grinding the pesto sauce to order? Are they making it, you know, with the pine nuts and stuff like that in the mortar and pestle to order? No. It's assembled like this is. Yeah. So it's an assembly line that is conducive to making the product.
Well, and to your point, you're pulling fresh espresso for your long blocks, right?
Yes.
So in that case, the coffee is the showcase item.
Yes.
Versus in a flat white where coffee is an ingredient that's making a completely different drink.
But also I think the way that you pull an espresso for a milk drink and a long black are also entirely different. Because
What, Kirk?
So we tailor our extraction for milk drink specifically because in my opinion, for a good milk drink, and it needs to be a high concentration espresso. So we dial ours in for between 12 to 13%. And then we have like for an 8-ounce coffee, and then obviously the rest is milk. So whereas a lot of coffee shops probably use something with a lower concentration, but a double shot. I don't like that because that means there's more water in the drink. So I want
Nobody's talking about that around us.
Okay.
And I love that. I love that you're talking about that.
Yeah, and I've noticed in America, typically the coffee tastes weaker, even though it's like double shot, because the concentration of the espresso to me just doesn't seem high enough.
And then talk about that with the Uber milk.
So the Uber milk is a device that automatically steams the milk, and that's been in circulation for a long time in Australia with no complaint, I might add. It's a pre-batch milk, and it's the biggest highlight of it for me is not actually the efficiency dividend from using it. It's that it doesn't add any water to the milk. And so it's just been God's blessing to coffee, really, because there's less water, so you get this beautiful, rich flavor in it. It's dessert-like. It tastes like it's naughty, but it's not. It's so good.
Melbourne magic, baby.
And that's how you get that really good coffee experience, where it's not a lavender vanilla latte. You're extracting these beautiful complex flavors from what could be Ethiopian or Colombian natural beans, and you're experiencing fruit in the cup. So, but again, like the long black extraction's different, whereas you're having it black without milk. So there's not these fats and these proteins and the water that's effectively diluted the coffee flavor. You're having a black. If espresso could be like 8% concentration. For a long black, it's 4% concentration. So you tailor the extraction differently, and so my recipe is quite strong for an espresso, and I'm using more water, like a longer yield typically for my black coffee, because to me they're entirely separate beverages that deserve an entirely separate extraction.
So what's your espresso recipe for your milk drinks versus your black coffee drinks?
I'm going to preface this with I'll do a little preamble here. So most cafes in Australia, if they're doing an 8-ounce coffee, it's using a double shot, at least 20 grams of coffee per coffee, right? So I am a bit of an extraction nerd. So what I calculated was that, so I had my hypothesis, but I tried it out at first, and it took a little while to be able to roast correctly for this method. So what we did instead was use 25 grams of coffee.
Oh my gosh.
And use a single shot and at a ratio, so it's 25 grams in, 37 grams out. So it's an extremely strong coffee.
And this is milk.
Yeah.
Bro, how do you get a portafilter that big?
Well, there's 25 gram VST baskets. And so...
Wake up, bro.
So then you use, so it's a single shot in each. So instead of being 20 grams of coffee used per coffee, it's 12 and a half. So that's a lot more efficient. So you're saving money. If people understand extraction, you can do things like that where you save your business significant amounts of money, which we have over the years. And
you too can make 3% profit.
And you too can make 3% profit. Thank you.
As long as you don't have to pay back your loans with that 3%.
Yeah.
Then you're in the negative.
And so, yeah, that's how we...
Okay, so 25 grams in, 37 grams out.
Yeah.
How many seconds typically?
25 to 30.
Just normal.
Yeah.
We got to try it, boys.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, but you see, it doesn't automatically just work. Like, we had to tweak the roasting profile for our coffee to...
Because I would imagine that you'd have to grind really fine
Quite
to make
coarse.
that happen. Coarse.
Well, yeah, using a higher amount
using
of,
just more coffee.
Yeah, using more coffee, and obviously with more coffee comes more resistance. So, 20 grams in for an extraction time of 30 grams is pretty across the board. That's pretty typical for a milk drink.
Sure.
Would you say? Well, it's the same time, but we use 25% more coffee. So, got to coarsen it up so there's less resistance.
Well, using the split shot method is something that we've done on our coffee carts for a long time.
Yeah, you guys are all naked portafilters in America. No. I can't stand it.
No.
We're all about spouting.
We're all about the spout.
Oh, at Valor Coffee, you're spouting?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're spouting.
We started
We're spout maxing.
Because I don't know the benefit of using a naked portafilter.
It's just
Camera.
That's all home brewer stuff, you know.
No, but like most of the cafes that I've been to in America are using the naked portafilter.
Yeah, well, I'm saying the home brewer thing trickled in even more to cafe culture because of the puck prep channeling.
But there's no functional benefit to using one, is there?
We're all on the same page.
Yeah,
Kirk, you're getting worked up, man. You're getting worked up.
But is there one functional benefit? It's dirtier.
It looks cool. It looks cool.
The claimed functional benefit is that you can see a channel if there's a channel.
You can see that with the spout as well, but
yeah, exactly. Or you can just taste it, you know.
Yeah.
Can't taste every drink.
But I don't know. I've got to go in deeper on this here. This has got to be a clip. We got to abolish naked portafilters. They're just it doesn't serve any functional purpose. They look nice, and the Instagram video of the thing dripping, it does look cool. But in terms of practicality, I just can't stand it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nasty.
It's the only place you should have a naked portafilter at home. Get
Not
naked.
even then.
Get naked at home.
Actually, there's one benefit, and that's being able to fit like a bigger keep cup underneath. That's it.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Like you can fit a cup under there, but like.
Hey, let me say something. I don't know how much you harp on this with pre-batching, automation, but I was talking to the guys about this. I feel like, well, I got an email from my friend Aaron talking about like what that allows you to do in the cafe space. And yes, there's all the efficiencies, but when we were talking about storytelling, like sharing the story of a coffee, that's a huge perk right there, is being able to like focus more on the guest experience and share about the coffee because the extraction's handling itself or like it's already been made. But then also, just instead of hyper fixating on the cafe, if you're thinking about the journey that the coffee goes through, we always talk about the cafe being the last stop for like for whoever's going to have it. Like the supply chain ends at the coffee shop, and so if we can do anything to raise the floor of like how quality a coffee can be represented, I feel like pre-batch espresso is a great way to do that. I don't know how you guys systematize it in your space, but I'm just thinking about day-to-day ops, like when it's super busy and you're rushing, I feel like the margin for error is way higher when it just comes to like ripping shots versus if you're locked in on a task of like, I'm making 300 espressos, I'm gonna like be on top of my work and I'm gonna raise the quality floor of what this espresso can be.
So people in our Instagram comments would say, and have said, you're only pre-batching espresso because your baristas suck. So
if they were actually good, they could make consistent espresso no matter how busy it is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious. Like, say let's sort of talk about grinding for a moment, right? So grinding has evolved so much in 10 years. So it went from using the manual chamber to Mazza robers that grind on demand and pretty accurately for a little bit, to Mythos that was doing the timing thing quite good. Now we're at grind by weight grinders that do it very accurately, and just how much time that's saved, collectively over the years for the barista, for the coffee industry at large. But it's, how different is it really? Like what skill set is it really so nuanced for someone to grab a portafilter from a grind by weight grinder, distribute, and then put it in a puck press and then activate the machine? Like, is a barista then not just a machine itself?
I think it's just simply that, especially when people see it online, they do not critically think about it. And so then they're like, fresh equals better always.
With most things it does, to be fair. Like, let's be real. Like, with most things in life, it does. And, on average, like, I spoke to Christopher Hendon and Doran Pennington the other day. So they're, he's a computational chemist. And he said to me...
this was at MIT.
Yes. So he said to me, which we got to talk about as well. But they said, and I posted a reel about it, chemically it's different. And, oxidization occurs. So... at a molecular level, it probably is degrading a touch and constantly is, like it's aging. And then it will get to a point where it does decline. But, there's been next to no empirical research done on that to really verify it. But anecdotally, and, there's plenty of qualitative evidence, from my cafe, that the experience is just as good. But at a molecular level, of course, it's changing. From the moment it touches the atmosphere, once it's being brewed, like it's being oxidized. And there's going to be amazing ways to prevent that in the future. I'm sure we can probably flush it with nitrogen or argon gas right now, and it'll make some level of impact. But really, if we're thinking at a scientific level, and there's once some investment and some time goes into the space, without a doubt, you'll be able to get consistently and more tasty espresso massively made from complex machinery in the future that can brew, maybe hundreds of liters at a time. Yeah. Then you will get you'll get better results in a flat white, for example, from that method than you will from, your 21-year-old barista who's making flat whites manually off a grind by weight grinder. Like, we can all, like, internet beef aside, I know a lot of people want to hate us for talking about this, but you can acknowledge that is fundamentally true. Where the world's capable of doing really amazing things these days, and it'll happen. And so that's more precise, more consistent, and it'll be done at a scientific level, which isn't a barista being like, side by side, this tastes better. Like when you got some proper real G's working on it
from MIT.
From MIT, it'll happen and it'll be better. And that's just an objective truth.
I think my utopia for this is, and again, back to what we were talking about before of, baristas churning out and just retaining less staff overall being perceived as a negative thing. Sorry, my preference would be less overall workforce behind the bar at a given time. And then when you can remove the giant 2 or 3 group La Marzocco machine, I think that you can replace that with something like a couple decents where you can showcase specific drinks in a more amazing way because the time allows for that. And then the people who do want the lavender vanilla latte, it's a very quick exchange,
honoring the divide of specialty coffee.
Yeah, like our Alpharetta Cafe could have 2 decents, batched espresso, and the Uber milk setup, and be churning out more drinks than we are now, while also giving the home brewer who wants something absolutely incredible a really good experience.
But that's to me, this is where the future of the coffee industry is headed, specifically for specialty, right? Because we already have all the machinery needed to totally eliminate humans from the coffee making process now. Let's talk you've got the Eversys machines, you could pre-batch your espresso, you could use an X-Bloom for your pour overs and batch brewer and all that sort of shit. All of that exists right this second. But is that something we all want to see happen? Do any of you guys want to see humans totally eliminated from cafes?
No.
Absolutely not. No.
We're like, no.
But yeah,
No way.
it's just, and this is something I'm really starting to kind of refine my thoughts around, is that the coffee industry 25 years from now will be more human than ever. But it'll be, the good baristas will be sommelier level knowledge.
Ooh, I like that.
Because in a world of post-scarcity where, heck, we'll probably have meals that we can have in the future that have all of your daily protein needs in like one nutritional slop if we want it to. Like, surely that'll exist. And, we'll probably catch whole cars to work for all we know. The self-driving cars currently exist now. The world's going to look a lot different. There's going to be a lot of different technology. But in that world, where everything is so much easier, convenience isn't just like a something sought after, it's just standard. So what becomes valuable then? Humans, going to something that reminds you of this past, because, we're developing technology at such a rate and it's not going to slow down. But this is where I feel like the coffee industry will actually excel. The specialty coffee industry, I should say. So like these specialty coffee shops that are independent, that have these unbelievable skills. Maybe those baristas are some of the highest paid members of society.
I was going to say, it's just everything you're saying is tied to wage. And whenever baristas are clamoring for higher wages, which they should do that, they're essentially asking for the boss to fire or lay off the people that work with them. Because there have to be less baristas on staff for each one to get paid more, as long as your revenue is fixed. So if your revenue does not increase,
Taking away, like, let's say, the outlier of if a cafe is operating at 30% net profit or something.
which the vast majority of cafes do not do that.
Yeah.
But if my staff all demanded a across the board 10 to 15% wage increase, like, that pushes me into not profitable. I've got to close my business.
So then it has to come from somewhere. You would have to make more drinks in less time in order to have less baristas to execute that wage.
Yeah, sort of. Like, I mean, in Australia, we have a long history of collective bargaining. So in America, from what I gather, like unions are kind of like micro unions. Like staff can set up a union amongst themselves for a business sort of thing. Whereas in Australia, unions cover like an entire working group. And collective bargaining is an essential piece of the Australian labour history. So we have a two-party system, which is being challenged significantly right now in Australia. But there's the Liberal Party, which is our Conservative Party. I know it's confusing.
Okay.
And the left-wing
The Libs
Democrat,
are actually conservative?
yeah, and the Democrat equivalent in Australia is called the Labor Party. So its history was formed with workers that during the 1800s that they were getting a really shit deal, so they'd go on strikes and things like that. And that's the history of the Labor Party. It's always its roots are developed in collectivism and collective bargaining, and that's just completely different in America. You've got a completely different set of values, and the system is not established for that. And look, it sounds like the workers, the average minimum wage worker is far worse off in America than they are in Australia. So whilst we have these exceptionally high wages and stuff like that, it's not something that I'm really too disproud of, because all I can, have comfort knowing that all my staff have, what they need to survive. And, and I wouldn't really want to have a business otherwise, because, it's all about people in coffee. But that's just not true for every country. And so, but it also comes at a cost. Businesses need to be profitable to be able to have staff. So you need to be able to service that as well. So it's about getting the balance right. And that's why, unfortunately, less people will be making coffee in the future. Well, perhaps not unfortunately, perhaps that's what needs to happen.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, like that's probably actually the moral thing to do. That's not saying that people are going to have no jobs. They're just going to be different. Like, for example, I don't think a train driver should exist in 2026. Because in Australia, in Sydney, we just built this, there was this large infrastructure project called the Metro Tunnel. And in Australia, train drivers get paid a decent amount of money. That it would be far more than an American one, because they have unions that represent them. They have collective bargainings, and they go on strikes that are very effective, and their wages are high. But when they go on strikes, the services don't run. So this new Metro Tunnel, it goes every 4 minutes. There's no train drivers, but it's every 4 minutes throughout the evening. It doesn't stop. That means there's more social mobility. The trains run on time. There's no strikes that affect people's ability to get to work. I think the world's better off with that system, and I don't think that renders more people unemployed. There's new industries developing all the time, and it will probably be the case in the future as well. I'm not one of these guys that subscribes to the belief that AI is going to render everyone unemployed. I actually just think it's going to be a tool people use. And, for example, is AI really that good right now? I was trying to find some yuzus in Melbourne the other day, and I asked ChatGPT, and I'm sorry, but if you can't direct me to some yuzus in a public city in 2026, you're not taking my job. So,
well, there's always mass hysteria whenever a new technology arises, and that's why you can look at it. I think this one maybe hits home the most because of especially the creative side of things and the lack of consent in replication and things like that. But we'll look back at this, in my opinion, as a very similar thing to, people were losing their minds whenever computer use started to really spread. And I just think it's just that on repeat. But
Okay, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have to pee so bad. Do you think we could just pause for a second and I can see if that's a bathroom?
yeah, do it, because I might even
Maybe we can go.
tag me in.
Yeah.
But we can have a part 2. How long have we been going for? Because I'm loving this. I'm loving this.
55 is the runtime, so minus the
We're-
beginning, probably around 50 or so.
I can go another 55 if we all take a week.
We're scratching the surface here,
Great.
gentlemen.
Yeah, I was going to
I'm not done.
We have
Yeah,
questions.
I'm not done.
Great. So for our coffee shop running compadres listening to this, if they're liking what they're hearing and they want to implement pre-batch espresso in their cafe, what would you tell them to do?
Well, we manually make ours off our espresso machine, and you can do it during kind of down hours as well, because coffee shops experience peaks and troughs. So that's what we do currently. Extract it to the same thing you would usually do if you want to make the same product. I always advise, as we mentioned before, making it really nice and concentrated, less water, positive. What are you doing, Fluff Bowl? What do you want?
Do something.
Get out of here.
Do something.
Nah, he's all right. We like that dog. She's locked in anyway. Anyway.
She literally doesn't care.
So yeah, just brew it as you usually would. I put an extra gram or two in the, 20, so it's extra 3 grams. So because you lose the crema, there's like a little bit less intensity. So I put a little bit more espresso in. So it's like, 20 grams per cup. And then, I wouldn't keep it for more than 3 days. That's probably where you can generally say, that's not going to deteriorate in quality and get, bacteria or something. Make sure you put it in extremely clean vessels to store it as well. So, just keep it clean.
Refrigerate
Get
it.
it clean, refrigerate it, serve it, pour it in cold, and bing bong bangity boo.
So you're using describe the machine to me. It's basically like an air pot in technology, right? Like it's pumped up through. So what is the pro to that instead of, say, kegging and flushing with nitrogen and pushing through like a draft line?
Well, you could, but that's just a significant step up in investment. That would probably be ideal, really.
Yeah.
But it's just, because
We already made that move. We have kegs, so that would be kind of nice.
Yeah. So these birds, man, they got their dog in them. But
That bird got that dog.
But yeah, just like that would probably be a more ideal situation because it's more anaerobic. I'd probably look to do that in the future. But right now, the company's called Six Simple Machines, and they do these systems that dispense liquids, and they're very accurate with the volumes as well. So very, very accurate. So we just have to place it under the it activates by a lever, which has a sensor. Usually it's used for like different higher volume liquids like batch brew or matcha. So it's got a sensor to cut it off. But we use it for a different function, which is espresso, which is obviously a lot lower volume. But it's volumetric and can be very accurate if you calibrate it correctly. And obviously one of the main reasons we have it is for the aesthetic appeal, because these also have digital screens. So it can present our coffee, obviously a bit of romance is lost with the pre-batching. Even I can admit that. So having, the branding on the screens and people being able to visualize what they're going to taste,
That's where he and I were getting into a little bit of a tiff a couple days ago when we were talking about this, because
scuttlebutt.
I was referencing what you were doing and that from the marketability approach, which is, a valid concern. Or even just, I'm like, are we going to call it batched espresso or are we going to call it rested espresso? It's even just...
Well, it's interesting you bring that point up, if I may talk about it, because a lot of people would call it concentrate. And to me, I think that's both grammatically incorrect and just doesn't apply, because it's not any more concentrated because it's been put in the fridge. It doesn't just become stronger magically. It's already extracted and at its strength. And then concentrate to me is a different category of product, because concentrate already exists and it's much weaker. Which is, a bit of an oxymoron. But if you buy Nescafe concentrate currently exists, you can go buy it from the supermarket and put it on your iced latte. It just doesn't taste as good because it's not espresso. It's not brewed under pressure. So that's why I call it pre-batched espresso, which I'm glad the name's kind of stuck to it, because again, concentrate's a different category of drink, and it'd just become awfully confusing if we had the same name for it, because this is concentrate 1A, and I just think it's...
Is cold brew popular in Australia?
Oh yeah.
Because
Yes.
so many people do cold brew concentrate iced lattes.
Yeah.
Is that common?
No. It's just not... Again, dilution is the enemy of tasty milk coffee.
And to that point, our original, blind test, we tested, and a lot of people hated this because we weren't drinking it straight for whatever reason, especially because of the context of we would never serve. That wasn't the point of the test. We're testing an iced latte with cold brew concentrate versus a fresh espresso latte versus a batch espresso latte. And the cold brew concentrate was the only really distinguishable beverage on the table because it was the worst option. And I think to your point, because of just the dilution.
Well, something I really like too about the pre-batch espresso, I don't know in your case, but it's cold, or at least, maybe you have it in a bottle out and it gets close to room temp. But that is way different than a, maybe 180 degree shot. So when it comes to making an iced drink for us, because that's, like I said, our use case, you're talking about way less dilution when you're dealing with ice in like an iced latte. And so I was doing it side by side, and I was like, just the sheer temperature of the drink is such a value add for us. The fact that you can have like a colder drink longer.
I got a sidebar question that I'd like an answer from all of you of. Or actually, I'll make a statement, and then you can either agree or disagree.
Wow.
The ice machine is one of the most important investments a coffee shop can make in 2026.
100%.
Agree.
Yeah.
I was maybe the.
Yeah.
What are you working with?
So I'm using a Hoshizaki ice machine.
Oh, there it is. Yep.
And,
obviously.
People, when I podcast, I drop this name on the podcast a lot. They should sponsor me. Hoshizaki, if you're listening, you should sponsor me, because multiple people have purchased Hoshizaki ice machines because of me.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Hoshizaki, if you're listening, God damn it, I want to talk. But again, it's the most important investment a coffee shop can make in 2026. Dunkin' Donuts, or now just Dunkin', now they make more cold drinks than hot drinks in America.
We make more cold drinks
without
than
a
hot
doubt.
drinks.
Without a doubt.
And having good quality ice is paramount to that.
We have gone through the entire journey of this with starting with a cheap ice machine, terrible, having to constantly go to our neighbor restaurant and get buckets of ice, to we have a Hoshizaki before.
Dunwoody.
Manitowoc, sorry.
Well, funny enough, in Alpharetta, we started with a cold draft, which is like a more like cocktail bar ice machine, like really nice, thick 1-inch cubes that couldn't keep up production.
They were so nice though.
Oh, they were
The
so
cubes
nice.
themselves were amazing. Just,
But, and then when we opened our second store, we had a back room. So we were able to get a stand-up Hoshizaki that makes pretty much the same quality ice. But in
Dense.
just nice little dimples, nothing crazy.
See, we got these like cubic ones. So
You're serious. Are they cubes?
cubes. And
Oh, cube. I was thinking spheres. The way I was like, no.
those are different.
that'd be cool.
Cube.
But the density of it is, so obviously the impact is it cools your drink. If it's denser, the higher quality ice, it doesn't dilute as quickly. Your drink stays better for longer. So best investment you can make as a cafe owner today is in your ice machine.
Well, I mean, to that point, back to if you're opening several cafes and you're not having to purchase 5 lineas, then you can invest in not buying the cheapest 3-bay fridge, not buying the cheapest ice
I got
machine.
a question for you. Are you worried that Big Espresso is going to come after you?
No,
DeLonghi?
because they're all in cahoots. La Marzocco is owned by DeLonghi, which also owns Eversys. So
Yeah, that's
everywhere
true.
you look at it, they win. They're fine.
They're like, just keep making espresso, baby.
Coffee grinders may be upset, but they'll find a way. They're making plenty of money.
Yeah.
Let us have a go.
Yeah, what about us?
Yeah. Coffee shop owner.
All right, you've been hinting at this story about your Airbnb here, and you have to spill.
All right, so this is my first time in America. I've got no idea of New York geography. I've been told it's a big city, but coming here and experiencing it, it's big.
Can't confirm.
And so I booked my accommodation. I thought I'll just get something cheap. I need to, I'm balling on a budget here. Need to save some money. Bad idea, because I booked my accommodation in a suburb called Brownsville. Anyone ever heard of Brownsville?
Not once.
I had never heard of Brownsville until a few days ago either. And as soon as I got off the train, I got out of the train station, I heard this screaming. Someone was chasing someone else with a knife.
Oh wow.
Out like within like literally a minute or two of me hopping off the train.
So you've just gotten there, you get out of the train station, and it's the first thing you hear.
But you know, I've seen that regularly in Melbourne as well, so that's not even the bad part. But then as I'm walking past, all these people are just looking at me going like this. And then I heard, it quickly became apparent to me I'm the only white guy in the neighborhood. Oh. And then I heard these whistles, people were whistling at me as I walked down. I'm like, oh, well, that's strange. Then I heard this one guy say, "I'll see you later tonight, white boy." And I was like, oh, whoa. Yeah, I'm in a slightly rough neighborhood.
You're in the red light district,
so to speak. And then I got to my hotel, the Airbnb, which is a little bit seedy, whatever, it happens in the game. But then I heard pop, pop, pop. 3 gunshots.
Wow.
Now, I've shot back home, and you know, Australians, we're not familiar with, in suburban neighborhoods, hearing gunshots. And I heard it again, and I was like, I have got to get out of here. I booked a new accommodation instantly. I got to the hotel where I was staying at. I told the lady where I'd come from. She's like, "Brownsville? You went to Brownsville?" And anyway, I probably didn't tell it with as much gusto as usual, but like, I've never felt in more danger in my life.
Well, and to preface, you were kind of warned about coming to the U.S., right? Maybe
a lot of Australians are scared of the US because of guns, right? We don't have guns readily available like you do.
And we all show our guns, right?
Yeah.
Clearly.
You know, you're packing right now. But like Australians are genuinely very scared of the US, a lot of them, because of, you know, the gun culture and differences. And, you know, with the exception of Brownsville, I haven't noticed it at all. And it just, a lot of people say to me, "Oh, be careful, Kirk. Be careful. There's a lot going on there." And you know, a lot of people in Australia are skeptical of Trump as well. So, but it's been, if you don't talk about politics, it's fine. No, this is a perfectly normal, safe part of the world.
And so let's talk about politics right now for the rest of this podcast.
Okay. So yeah.
And
I mean, so opening a coffee shop in the U.S., you cannot go 7 days without hearing the differences between Australian and U.S. coffee culture.
What do they say?
Well, the people that say that Australia is so much better than U.S. specialty, thanks, bro, U.S. specialty coffee, are also the ones that maybe don't know as much about specialty. Or they will say like, "Oh, this place, you guys have like the pretty designs on your drink. This reminds me of Australia. Have you ever been?" And I'm like, "No." But now I can be like, "I know a guy. He's been. He actually owns a couple coffee shops. But he doesn't even pull as a fresh espresso. So is he even a coffee shop?"
Disqualified.
DQ.
Tell him.
What are the general assumptions about American coffee culture from Australia?
That it's just bad. You know, like everyone just says it's bad. That's the general consensus.
Yeah.
It's not fact, but I think a lot of people just think it's drip coffee from Denny's or something, or Starbucks, and Starbucks isn't even that bad. Like I've been hitting up the mango. I've been getting my Starbucks order because I've realized the importance of Starbucks to America as I've come here. Because you know, when you're traveling, public bathrooms aren't as frequent in America. So like,
oh really?
Yeah. So like, you can go to a public toilet a lot easier, or someone will let you use their toilet a lot easier in Australia. In Europe, you got to pay. That's just a heinous system. Like they make you like tap your credit card to go to a public toilet.
Bro.
That is I'm sorry, Europe, but that is backwards. You know, you gotta fix that shit up.
Even the public restroom situation is like, this is not the case in the Southeast. You can go anywhere and use a toilet. Like we have struggled with that even on this trip in New York.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's me. Okay, I've been struggling.
But you go to a Starbucks here. You've got access to the Wi-Fi. You've got access to the bathroom and a comfortable place to go sit if you're walking around. I'd be screwed without Starbucks on this trip.
Yeah. And they've even said that you do not have to purchase anything to use their facilities. Like it's corporate policy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's
They had to go through some stuff to get there.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, Starbucks doing the most right now. So, and you know, depending, like, would I get a coffee there? No, but you know,
Yeah, what's your order?
At a Starbucks? Well, mango iced chai. Well, it's like an iced chai with mango cream. Hello, puppy.
Hi.
No, but we would love for this dog to join. Hey, puppy. Looks like a little gollywog toy, you know? Look at that.
I would say the majority of baristas that work in specialty coffee shops in the US don't like the taste of straight up espresso. Like they actively avoid tasting the product unless it's like their shift drink, which was probably an iced latte. Like in the people listening to this podcast may think of themselves and be like, oh, I would never do that. I love espresso. Or you may be running a really great coffee shop where everyone on the team loves espresso. But your boy, namely me, is out in the field visiting a lot of different cafes and training people. And the majority of those coffee shops, they have La Marzocco machines, they have Mazzer Malcona grinders, they have the Fetcos, they have nice coffee. Most of those baristas are like not getting a job in a specialty coffee shop for the same reasons that I did when I started. Like they're getting it because it's just cool, you know, and they don't like the taste of straight up espresso. So when you say Australians think that US coffee shops suck, I think of that. I'm like, yeah, that sucks. Like if you work somewhere and you don't like the taste of the product, but it's like, can you blame them? Because as we were discussing earlier, you have this co-ferment espresso in your cafe, and a lot of people order it, and they order it in their flat white.
We only serve it as a flat white, so you can't get like a long black or a straight espresso with that co-ferment.
And so that drink does not, it only has milk in the co-ferment espresso. And the demographic of the people that are ordering that drink are probably similar to the demographic of people in the US that are ordering iced flavored lattes. They want a more fun drink, maybe something a little bit with more perceived sweetness, but there's no sugar in that drink. And so my point is, these baristas in US coffee shops, can you really blame them for not tasting the espresso whenever they almost never sell straight up espresso, and they're mostly just using that espresso as an ingredient in a sugary, milky drink?
Well, I mean, if you're serving it, you should be tasting it. That's like, you know, does a chef not try his food?
I guess what I'm saying is like, it makes sense how we ended up here.
Yeah, it is. And particularly with espresso in America, it's a lot different to how you serve it in Australia. Everyone, like the single origin, you know, espresso that I get here it's extracted a lot longer. It's much more diluted. You know, I went to Say Coffee yesterday and it's like, it's borderline a category of its own, their espresso. It's like, is it really espresso? Like, to me, it's just so fundamentally different. Wow. I'm not saying it's bad. It's quite pleasant. And because it's, you know, stretched out a long way, you can actually iron out most of the potential defects, but I just don't think you can get all the maximum highs either. But, you know, I like coffee shops doing different things, but like, you could make an argument that that's maybe a different category of drink altogether. It's like a lungo, but if you're working with something, you should absolutely be tasting it. And we all have preferences, right? I go through phases where, you know, for weeks at a time, I'm drinking nothing but flat whites. For weeks at a time, I'm drinking nothing but espressos and then nothing but filter. Like I love being able to do that with coffee. But, you know, I totally understand there's people with preferences. There's a lot of baristas that I'm sure we've all worked with that don't drink milk coffee at all. And so they're just like, yeah, no, I'm black coffee only. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Well, yeah, our approach, and people were upset at us for taking a cupping spoon and slurping an iced lavender vanilla latte, because it's like, that's dumb. Like, why would you taste that drink in that way? And it's because we want to apply the same level of excellence, intentionality to that menu item as we do our by the cup coffees.
But, you know, the reason that we cup coffee in the way we do and aerate it in our mouth is so that we can get like a greater sensory encapsulation of what you're sampling, right? Mm-hmm. So why would that not apply to another drink? Right. Like with, you know, sommeliers, they do something similar, don't they?
Oh,
like
yeah.
aerate it through their mouth and do all that weird shit. You know, like, well, I don't see it. Yeah, a lot of people would see it as different, but you're applying a higher level of QC to a different beverage.
We don't cup our iced lattes frequently. I'm just saying, like,
So basically, you're going straight to hell.
we should QC every
And I didn't
drink
cup it
item.
because I thought it was cringe. I just want to be
And
clear.
you're really trying not to be cringe this year.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
that's your
that's
one
my
goal.
It's not
whole-
going too well.
New Year's
but-
resolution.
Yeah.
It happens. Hey, I wanted to play a game, if we can.
You want to wrestle?
Sure.
You'll probably win. Well, you know, you'll win. You're gonna win. You're a big guy.
We got a tall guy on the team.
Glazing Ross, dude. He's not that strong. He's not that athletic.
He's big and tall. But I want to play a game where you guys all roast one thing about Australian coffee, and I roast one thing about American coffee.
Ooh.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, you set the bar.
Bypass. I don't understand why so many US specialty coffee shops and Canadian bypass their pour overs. And to me, it makes no practical sense at all. Like, if you're bypassing, you're just acknowledging that you need to dilute a drink more, right? And you could have just brewed it and continued to extract the coffee at the correct ratio. Like, that's how you dial in coffees. Yeah, sure, you can probably polish a turd a bit better with, you know, if you brew it strong, and then you can gradually, dilute it a little bit more to get to your desired strength. I just think it's inferior. The only thing you're bypassing is making a tasty coffee. It doesn't, it's grammatically incorrect. It's dilution. What are you bypassing? What are you bypassing? Flavor. You're bypassing making a good drink. It's just
Kirko.
it's diluting. You're not bypassing. We are bypassing. You're bypassing making it taste good.
I'll tell you why we do it.
Well, yeah.
So the way we do it is not the same as what you're describing. So our by the cup method in our cafes is done through our espresso machine. We call it a middle child.
It's the Nomicano. You know the Nomicano?
No.
You know,
That's what I was talking about with the coarser grind paper filter.
Yeah. So that's what Say's doing.
Maybe.
I think so. It's similar to that.
Like for their espresso, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we're brewing at a 1:9 or 1:8 brew ratio.
Okay.
So it's definitely weaker than what you had it say. Like say, well, tell me, the say shot, what was the total volume of that around?
I couldn't tell you.
4 ounces.
Maybe.
Okay, cool.
And just for the record, it was good. Like, it was pleasant and enjoyable.
So the output of our middle child is 180 grams,
6 ounces.
6 ounces. So it's a good bit more than an espresso. We cannot achieve that quality of extraction at this point, pulling at 9 bars of pressure. We can't achieve that level of quality of extraction at a 1:16 brew ratio that we can at a 1:8 or 1:9, because it's just so much
It's not 9
hot
bars.
water.
But is that not just
It's
an
not-
Americano?
It's not 9 bars.
Okay.
Because we're grinding coarse enough to where it's max flow rate, which can achieve 9 bars. So then it's actually like 3.
So if you look at the meter, it never actually hits that. Okay, because it's so
yeah.
coarse. Well, I guess what I mean is
We're not really
we
making
don't
espresso.
have pressure profiling set up and that sort of thing. We just have it set to one setting. So that's why we do it. But I never understood why bypass water is a thing, like on batch brew or something like that. That never made sense to me.
I don't think it has a functional purpose. Maybe I'm looking forward to the hot takes on this one, but
I mean, I love, have you ever used the Next Level Pulsar?
yes.
That's my favorite brewer
Yeah.
because it's a true no bypass brewer. And it's like,
Music
I
to
don't
your
know.
ears, huh?
I think a lot of people, especially as people get into ultralight Nordic coffees, are starting to go the other way, where they're okay with, low extraction percentage coffees, which is fine. But for me, for a long time, I've just been chasing like, how can I get the highest extraction percentage without over extracting or getting astringency or whatever. And so that's why I've loved the Next Level Pulsar.
Well, that's just an amazing brewer with dual functionality as well. It can be immersion and percolation, and the spray head on it, and the paper filter below. It is an incredible brewer. I would say that pound for pound could be the best brewer on the market today.
Kirk, are you sponsored or something? What is this?
All right, who's gonna roast Aussie?
Yeah, who's gonna?
I got one if you guys don't.
Okay, go for it.
Well, by your own admission, you said that the baristas in Australia aren't as knowledgeable as the ones in America, and yet the culture of coffee in Australia is put on this pedestal, and I'm confused by that.
Yeah, well, I mean, even because Melburnians love to take ownership of it, right? And I'm going through this really interesting formulation of this view is that we've been a victim of our own success. You know, specialty coffee is so available. Like even, you know, burger chains sell quote unquote specialty coffee there and advertise it as specialty coffee.
Really?
Yeah, and there's also such a density of specialty coffee shops. Like they're literally on every block in Melbourne, and that of course makes it all less special. It means there's less good, talented people in the one location. You know, you're spreading talent further, and so that means, you know, you see people that it's just their job in college or something like that, and that's kind of why I think that. If you want to work as a specialty barista in America, I think it's just typically because you really want to do it. Whereas in Australia, it's like, for a lot of people, it's just another job. And
I'd say it's, at least where we are, it's very similar to that. Yeah. And your experience of how long you've been in coffee, have you seen the median age of a barista go down because of this spreading of specialty coffee?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Like, I typically see, like a lot of people, because unfortunately coffee is really difficult to make a career out of, where you can pay a mortgage or something like that. A lot of people graduate to different positions in coffee or just leave the industry altogether. And that's like, you know, that talent leakage is really bad, and it kind of lends to, you know, we have less talented staff on average on coffee bars because there's only so much to go around. It's not like there's that many people in the world that, as a proportion of overall population, that really want to be a specialty barista. And, you know, of the small amount that we do, you know, some are better than others. So this looks like the snow monster on Hoth in the Empire Strikes Back. The Wampa, is it a Wampa?
Oh, Wampa.
No, you stick around as long as you want, buddy.
The thing that we, yep.
Yep, there you go. See, he looks like he's about to eat Luke Skywalker.
Apricot?
Yeah.
I've got one. 2% net profit. That's my roast.
And it's a good one. Roast me further. Like, it's embarrassing that, you know, we have to try and justify ourselves to the population that then wants to go around the world and be like, oh, we're so good. It's a failure of our of our industry, and you know, it's.
I'm just concerned, mainly.
Yeah,
it's not. I'm not. I said that more as a joke, but I'm just like, how, you know, what's the breaking point, and what is that going to look like for? Because I mean, isn't the amount of cafes in Melbourne like a staggering statistic? Do you know the number?
Heinous. Yeah, on a per capita basis, it's got to be the highest in the world.
Yeah, I remember Drift magazine. Like, I think their like second or third edition was on Melbourne, and it was like the number like blew my mind. It was like when I was first getting into coffee, and so I'm just like, you know, as that number starts to creep more towards -1, -2, -3%, you know, what does that look like, and what's the fallout of that for, you know, because we've been talking a lot about how efficiency is going to remove positions, but what also moves positions is businesses going under. So,
well, you see, I think the future of Australian specialty coffee looks a lot more American, to be honest. And that's the reality that that people in Australia are going to have to come to terms with, because here, like we discussed before, it's not like an independent can go and just open a coffee shop in New York or downtown Chicago or Boston easily. The rents are just heinously expensive. Yeah. The future of Australian coffee looks more like chains. You know, you got lots of Dunkin' around here. That's probably what we look forward to in Australia one day. You know, if you want your cheap coffee, you'll get it.
Dude, that's what everybody says too. From Australia, they're like, Starbucks tried to open here.
Yeah,
they all
very
say
proud
that, dude.
statement.
Yeah,
Sure.
and they're surging in popularity in Australia now.
Do you guys have Luckin?
No, not yet, but
Okay.
I'm sure it'll come.
Yeah.
But
What'd you say?
Luckin?
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 Yeah, they're Chinese, right?
You've not heard of Luckin
Chinese brand?
coffee?
No. What is this?
Where'd you get this guy?
I know.
It's like a massive Chinese company that's growing exponentially, and you can only order from a kiosk or an app.
And then they just bought Blue Bottle.
Yeah. So they've
You said it
opened
like off camera.
They've opened 20,000 stores or something in
They
the
open
last.
like a store a minute or something like that.
It's something heinous, something crazy. But to round off the point, that's what the future of Australian specialty coffee looks like. More chains.
It's pay to play, man. You can't have that like huge capital cost to start a coffee shop if you're only profiting that.
I will say as well, Australian hospitality businesses, not just coffee, hospitality business, had a mass non-compliance issue when it comes to paying staff correctly. So it was standard for people to be paid cash under the table because it's non-reportable and it's gotten more difficult with pay wave and stuff like that. But there was a guy called George Columbaris who is he's a professional chef, and he was one of the hosts of the Australian MasterChef series. So he was very big, very well known. Anyway, so his company got reported for non-compliance with payments to chefs. So chefs all around the world work heinously long hours for not much money. And it's the same in Australia. And it's not just like any select few businesses did it. All of them did it. And that's how they stayed competitive. And when that happened, it was a massive inflection point in Australian hospitality, where everyone quickly had to become compliant. And what that really meant is that pushed them all to this situation we're in now, or helped, of a lot of these businesses probably couldn't actually afford to be in business in the first place because they were structurally non-compliant. And that was all of them. So, and that's only started to change, 4 or 5 years ago. So a lot of people in Australia are being illegally paid. I was for a lot of my career.
On record, Kirk.
But it was normal.
Yeah.
And it was all that you could do. But for some people it worked because it's non-taxable. But obviously shops like that because then they don't want to report it to the taxman. But that also, let's face it, doesn't really exist today because you've got Square where all of most people pay on a card these days, and that loophole's not there. And I think those are some of the reasons that have probably pushed us to a more realistic scenario, is like a lot of coffee shops could not actually afford to be in business in the first place if they're following all the rules.
I'm curious your take on tipping, because there's no tipping where you are, and the price per drink is still lower.
Yes.
So like a latte for us right now is $5.50, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without around there. Plus tip, you're tipping $1 typically, and then tax as well. So what do you think of that?
Well, I would add to that, we also include the tax in our price too. So we have a consumption tax called GST. So you might call it sales tax. We call it goods and services tax. It's on 10% of every single transaction, with a few exemptions like I think fresh food is one.
10%?
Yeah. So everything you pay, 10% goes to the government. So, and that's to fund like hospitals and things like that. So it has a purpose. And we have free healthcare in Australia. So
I'm sure they're doing great stuff with it.
Yeah. No. There's some benefits, like, we don't go bankrupt for having an injury sort of thing, like people do here, unfortunately. But it's, it's tough. And you got to pay it quarterly. So last quarter, I've got a tax bill for $60,000, in a business that makes, I can't remember what the revenue was last year, but it's significant. That's one quarter. So the taxes in Australia are enormous, and the costs are enormous, and the prices we charge are a little itty bitty, compared to relative to all that.
Yeah. So let me just ask the most obvious question: you can't just raise your costs?
Not easily,
Prices.
Raise your prices. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But this goes into, one of the basic laws of economics: demand and supply. Supply is enormous. Supply is enormous in Australia.
Yeah.
Which means you're competing against a lot more people. And people can just, if they don't want to pay 50 cents extra, then they can just go to the one that's 50
dude,
cents
you're getting
cheap.
kind of famous. I think if you got like a picture of your head and put it on, Fathead, and you got it on your windows, it's like home of Kirk Pearson's pre-batch espresso.
I don't know. I feel like it'd be a bit of a deterrent these
Cha-ching,
days.
cha-ching,
Photoshop
cha-ching.
your face onto Tim Hortons' body,
Oh.
and you'll be good to go.
Just give me Tim Hortons' body.
Yeah.
The man was an Adonis.
We all want that.
He was very well constructed.
So have you started to notice more coffee shops in Australia going out of business? Or do you think you're just
Strangely enough, no. Because it's like a whack-a-mole. Like one goes down, 3 more open. Even still in this economic circumstances.
Where is the money coming from?
I don't know. Like there's a lot of people moving to Australia all the time. Like high level of migration. Our natural rate of increase is below replacement. So we got a lot more immigrants coming every year. And I don't know. It just feels like when one shop closes, 3 more open. Like it's totally irrational. I don't get it. It could be statistically untrue. This is just anecdotal, but something has to change, and we're getting to a point where this is public discourse now more than it ever has been before, with relating to like the costs of cafes. So we've got this. And Australia's been a magnificent success story up until now with coffee culture, and and I implore you guys to come. You'll love it. At Melbourne, Sydney, you'll absolutely love it. A lot of Melburnians are upset because Sydney people are starting to make just as good coffee.
Are we gonna get like beat up if we come over there though?
No, I mean like
they're going to be afraid of us because they'll think we have guns.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. Well, you won't be able to bring one to Australia or get one easily in Australia. So
We'll know about guns, so that they'll be afraid of us.
That knowledge is power.
yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, no, I fear for the Australian specialty coffee scene. I really do. There's a lot of well-intentioned, professional people in there that are really hardworking, and their heart and mind are in the right place. But it's no longer a fair industry for it's never really has been for producers, and now it's like no longer viable for coffee shop owners as well. And I think inevitably the future looks like it's going to be more chains and less independent coffee shops, and it's probably emblematic of society at large. Consolidation and concentration of wealth.
Middle class.
Yeah, the middle class is disappearing, and then you've got SpaceX IPOing for 1 point whatever trillion the other day, and wealth is across the world becoming more concentrated into less people's hands, and that is problematic for the coffee industry as we know it.
But now you are one of the elites because you have your coffee podcast, right?
Oh, I'm safe forever. I got a coffee podcast. It'll pay all the bills, and
You're one of those guys you were talking about at the top.
Yeah.
What took you to making like content and making a podcast from being in a coffee shop? Were you doing content and videos before you had your own cafe?
Well, I only really started so I've been podcasting on and off for like 6 years. So I first started off with the Sub-Zero Coffee podcast. Sub-Zero Coffee is my former brainchild, by the way. That's the logo for it, little SpongeBob looking thing.
Come on.
That's a vacuum sealed bag with beans in it.
I love that.
And then I was one of the, there's It's Just Coffee, which I founded with Rowan and Sonam. So I was part of that, and I decided I wanted to go do my own thing. But I studied journalism, so that's got a degree in journalism. So it's always interviewing people and telling stories has always been something I'm interested in, and having a podcast of the thing that I absolutely love scratches that itch. But I started making content like Instagram Reels and stuff like that only this year, I think, and it's blown up a lot. Like obviously clips for the podcast are different, but making videos of what I do in the coffee shops and going to different manufacturers and showing off machinery and just anything to do with coffee.
And bricks.
Yeah, and bricks. We'll get into the bricks, but I only started doing that this year, and I think at the start of the year I had like 4,000 followers, and today I probably got like 15. So it's like, it's grown a lot and started to make content. Obviously I'm not like Morgan Eckroth, but it's the community is growing, and obviously my profile's grown a little bit with that. And
you kind of just have to post, It's like you post and it happens. We kind of realized that we put off posting on our individual channels for like the entire extent of this company, and then me and Ross kind of just started posting, and it's like, some people see value in it.
Yeah.
And you just have to keep it coming out.
But I think this is also business discourse generally at the moment. Like, people are far more interested in individual stories that they can kind of aspire to themselves in a way. Like, sometimes someone commented on one of my videos this morning where I was packing coffee. We just got these new packages, so we got new boxes and things like that, and invested a lot of money into it. And I wanted to roll it out by the time the Melbourne International Coffee Expo happened, because we got so many more people visiting from outside of Melbourne, and I had to. All the packaging arrived on the Tuesday, and I needed to have it done by Thursday, which means I packed it on Wednesday. And so I packed 1,000 boxes on my own, and it meant I worked a 26-hour working day. I didn't sleep, and I responded back to the guy. I was like, all right, well, he said, I really want to be able to do my own thing just like you're doing. And it's like, okay, well, this is what it means. Long hours. And it's when I was there, I just thought, well, screw it. I may as well just video some of it. It takes a few minutes to set up, but I'm here for the long run. And sometimes bringing people along for that's really cool. And this is what it really means to be a business. There was one video I did where it's like, this is what we had a public holiday, and I spent my public holiday maintaining the cafe, cleaning the ice machine, repairing some stuff. And I was like, well, screw it, I can film this, and it's pretty easy. And then I obviously do a podcast. So, I work a lot, and I just, being able to bring people along for the journey and show what it really means in a specialty coffee sort of sense is pretty cool. But it is kind of disappointing that I'm now just pigeonholed into a box of being the pre-batch guy in a way, because like I'm a genuine specialty coffee person and professional. And, with the work I did with Sub-Zero Coffee, and, still love doing to this day and want to explore in the future, having these longer, more extensive menus of bigger coffees, I love doing that stuff. And just because I like to pre-batch a latte, it doesn't mean I want everyone to do that. And it doesn't mean that I have a lot of good abilities as a barista, and I hope that people can see me for more than just, pre-batched espresso, because I've brought a lot to the table with, freezing coffee that people have embraced all around the world as well. And, they message me, it's like, I did this because of you. And that's really heartwarming. And, I hope in the future I can tell more stories, not just about, what it's like running a coffee shop, but what it's like being in the coffee industry at the production side, the producing side and stuff like that. So, yeah, hopefully this is the internet, and obviously you get labels pretty easily and quickly, but I hope people can see me for more than that in the future, to be honest. Why did you guys start doing it?
We see you, Kirk.
Yeah, we see you as more than that.
Thank you. Why did you guys start doing it?
Oh, that's a good question.
The podcast and your content.
We started doing the podcast because we were at a point where we were all still in very much like heavy operator roles within the company. So he was in the cafe all the time. I was like in the roastery, green buying, marketing world, and he was doing wholesale sales. And so we just didn't see each other very much. And we were like, let's have a podcast where we can talk on camera. So we would roll for like 3 hours and just talk about garbage.
It was called Coffee.
That's a Joe Rogan length podcast.
Yeah, for sure. But it was like 3 uninteresting dudes, like not interviewing like top performers in the world. So we would talk a lot about football and
movies apparently.
Yeah.
Things that like 56 people on YouTube would suffer through.
Okay.
Yeah.
The real ones.
The
real
real,
OGs.
the day
If you've
one
been here
babies.
since then, comment below.
I feel like it was that, and then a big motivator too was, we started a cafe and a coffee company when we were like 19, and so we were like chronically looking for help and resources, support, wisdom, counsel, you name it, and we're trying to find that within our industry. And I think earlier on there's a little bit more like gatekeeping to information and strategy and tactics, and so a huge conviction of ours was like, well, we definitely haven't arrived, but might as well share on what we have learned and what we are learning, and heck, what we want to learn. Cut to like last year, we were talking about how we really want to change the way we source green coffee, and then pretty soon we're going to be able to do a podcast with one of our like best sourcing partners in Colombia, just on how that whole thing has evolved. So kind of like inviting people along, kind of simple thing of like, hey, we're going to share everything that we learned. So if you're starting before us, maybe this will help you make less mistakes than what we did. And then, just that relationship side of too. I mean, especially if you've experienced it too, like entrepreneurship can be really isolating and really lonely. And so I think a lot of people have found like would be solace or community in like what we have to say as far as like the ups and downs of running a small business.
I think the number one thing to remember with marketing out of everything is do cool stuff that's worth marketing. And like when I look at your life, that's what I see. Like you're doing these really lo-fi videos that aren't, the best of the best cameras or whatever, but you're doing a cool thing and just documenting it and showing it. And like the best marketing, when the product or the experience or whatever it is that you are marketing is good and compelling and original and unique, that does 90% of the heavy lifting of making it a success. The delivery, the strategy is just icing on the cake. So that has become more and more prevalent and important for us because, we have a marketing team now, which if you told 19-year-old me that you would have a marketing team, that I wouldn't have believed you. But we have someone who runs our Instagram, we have someone who runs our YouTube, we have someone who runs our email marketing, we have some full-time editor, and they're all operating in their different channels and islands. And so in order for us to actually make sense of having those roles, we have to do cool stuff that's worth talking about and not just be like, we're a coffee shop, which gets at like, honestly, one of the things I'm most passionate about in this business is I think that most coffee shop owners don't know why they're in business beyond just they like coffee and they like coffee shops and they like thought it would be cool to have a coffee shop and they needed something to do. None of those are evil reasons to have a coffee shop. It's okay to have those things. But when you have a higher purpose, then it's way easier to market because there's like actually a story. And then the most important part of that is like, it's the people. Like it becomes easier to hire people whenever you are hiring them because they're already living your why and you have the same why. So then instead of just like hiring people and expecting them to follow your policies, you are inviting them to continue living their life mission just at your coffee shop because you both have the same life mission. So
that's good.
Random thoughts, but
Yeah, I think with recruiting as well, if I can talk about that for a moment, like when I hire people or everyone that comes to work for us is, I try and make sure it's the best job they've ever had, and I try not to be a micromanager. There's high expectations, but at our shop, you're given every single resource you need to succeed. If you've got the right attitude, there's no excuse why you can't have a good time and perform well. There's none. And that's not something I hold over people. It's just, I think believing in people, and I'm sure you guys all have experienced this. There's a lot of people, and I was talking to George Howell about this the other day, a lot of people just want to see you do well. Even if you've got an employee that their ambition is to one day open a coffee shop themselves. Great. That's what I wanted to do one day. I'm gonna invest everything I can in you and teach you as much as I can, whether you work with me forever or not. Yeah. Because you going on to succeed later on, it would make me proud. And I think that's something I hope more coffee employers embrace, because not everyone goes to work at an organization forever. We all understand that, and we all have ambition ourselves. And I just think I hope the dynamic is pro investing in your staff, and I hope there's a reciprocal level of my boss is doing the most for me as well. And I think that's a good dynamic to have between coffee shop owner and employees.
Yeah, our, I guess, contrarian take to many people in the industry for a while has been that the concept of being a career barista just can't work. And we say that specifically because of what we see within our own specific profit model. And so with that, when we admit that, we know that all of our baristas have two directions. And it's one, that some position makes itself available for them to move up within our company and have a career salaried type of position, or two, that they will leave our company and go do something else. So we kind of, I don't know, we've called it many different things, but basically, like what you're saying, we want to give you all of the possible skills that we know how to give you from what we have learned, so that you can translate them into whatever other industry you're going to be in after this. And it makes the work like way more fulfilling. So.
Yeah, and it's conducive to a better culture, which is there's no animosity between you, and it's a better environment that you can perform better in as well.
That's what I was going to say. If you just think purely selfishly as a boss, it is the best move on the board to pour as much as you can into your staff, always, even if they are going to leave your shop in 2 weeks to start a coffee shop across the street. That's hyperbolic, and that's not going to happen. But if you're just thinking purely selfishly of like, how can I get the most out of this barista? It's like to pour into them and to like tell them everything you know, because they are going to reciprocate that when they're there, as opposed to like holding everything close to your chest and living in a scarcity mindset.
What do you guys think about hiring non-experienced baristas? Because I'm a big advocate for it.
We love it.
And especially if you're hiring from another industry. So I got a guy that works for me, Dennis. Last year, shout out to Dennis. He had never worked in a coffee shop last year, and now he's like second to me in our business. And he's running the whole show while I'm gone for 2 months. Wow. And no experience. And these are his background's in finance. So I've got someone who he's packing with a different skill set that's extremely valuable to me.
He's not packing the way that we're packing.
Yeah,
guns.
Yeah. He's packing accounting knowledge and finance knowledge. Wow. And Ella, who I just made a video about, we documented her first day and put the meta glasses on her and stuff like that. And she does sort of digital work for us, but had zero experience making coffee. And my new policy is, if you come work at our business, then no matter your position, you're going to be making coffee. Because I just don't want to have people that are soft. I don't want to have people that don't understand being in the trenches and stuff like that. It's just not what I want. So there's going to be a lot of inexperienced people, and I think it's, hiring on attitude is so much better than hiring on resume.
Oh yeah, soft skills are way better than hard skills. Yeah. I would say 95% of the employees we have ever hired did not have industry experience.
Or like Starbucks experience, or like, they worked at a coffee shop that was nowhere close to what we're trying to do.
But having that Starbucks experience is probably actually valuable in a lot of ways for different things. Like we're talking about the assembly of drinks, right? They're probably far more qualified than a specialty barista.
I think the stamina plays into of like being behind the bar for 8 hours. You have to have a degree of social stamina and physical. Whenever people transition from a desk job to the hospitality industry, there can be an added difficulty there, because they're just used to like crunching numbers. It's different to be behind the bar. But overall, I would still take that person if they're a culture fit every day.
Same thing the other way around. just to be real, including us, every single person who has transitioned from the barista role to an admin job has had an immensely hard time with getting into project planning and running a to-do list. And
Wow, yeah, good point.
I got a sidebar question, and I'll start with a preamble, right? So we've been talking about, you know, how people value coffee and don't really want to pay a price for it, but they love it, and it's like almost an extension of oneself, you know, having coffee. Along comes, a few years ago, matcha, right? But matcha people automatically will just pay more for, and it's almost like a fashion accessory as well, right?
Yeah.
Why is matcha perceived as this high quality, valuable drink, and why is coffee not? Because people will pay more for matcha, and it's not necessarily tastier. I don't think so. I sell it, but and from time to time I enjoy one here and there.
At Blank Street, apparently.
Yeah, but what did coffee do wrong? What has matcha got that coffee doesn't, where people perceive it so valuably?
I mean,
What do we need to hire the matcha PR guy?
well, when I think about luxury brands, a lot of times it's like there's a Japan link to it, honestly. And I don't know if that's a part of it, but I think that Japan has a really good brand for luxury branding.
100%. 100%. Because hot take here again, I don't think Japanese baristas make better coffee than Australian or American baristas.
Sure.
And I don't think they roast better on average. I don't think the coffee, when I think of coffee countries I've traveled to, Japan's like 10 or lower on my list, you know, and I just think because they've got this image of being, you know, the culture of Japan and having that, the word omakase and
They're making me hungry.
and you know they are, like, when you hear a Japanese person speak, it's very eloquent, and then when you hear someone like me with an Australian accent speak, it's like you're a redneck. But
We don't think that about you, Kirk.
I and my contemporaries in Australia make really good coffee.
I also think a part of it, this is whatever, just stream of consciousness at this point. But would you say that girls or guys like matcha more?
Oh, girls.
Okay. Girls or guys better at posting aesthetic social media content?
Girls.
I think that's a big part of it. It's like
It's like a
just-
vibe.
Like, what percent of influencers are women?
Yeah. And like that, just this is another example of like my wife, when we were younger, she loved coffee, and then it just started to hurt her stomach more. And then she tried matcha, and it was like perfect. And so I think there's
We lost another one.
maybe that aspect of it too. If it's like easier on your system, and then like girls like it, and they post content about it that gets views.
It's
and
full of
then
antioxidants.
Talk
Sure.
about the caffeine experiences, like different.
maybe
My-
less inflammatory. I don't know.
My first thought too, coffee is ubiquitous. You can get it at a gas station. You can get it anywhere. Matcha is a little more scarce,
Yeah.
especially if we're talking like legit matcha, sencha, uji, stone milled, Japan, shade grown, specialty coffee shops for the most part. You know, include now Starbucks. I don't even know, does Dunkin' do matcha?
Don't know.
If not, they will soon.
If not, they will soon.
Everyone's
But
cashing in.
all that being said, like I think it's a little specialized. So it's like, oh, this is special. But coffee, you have such a range of price.
I think that the fact that it's green does 50% of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Compared to the
Marketable product.
imagine if it was the same color as coffee. We
Well,
would not be having this
Enter
conversation.
Hojicha.
Yeah, and hojicha, no one drinks that.
Yeah, I instantly, like the Japanese denim, you know? It's like, all you gotta say is Japanese denim.
Japanese breakfast.
Japanese breakfast.
Yeah, but if you were to ask the average influencer girl where the matcha comes from, I wonder if they would have that perspective of like, I like this because it's Japanese specialty product.
Definitely not.
So,
I'm saying there is something to how something got to prevalence versus how it stays or explodes into
Yeah, Ross.
mainstream. We got to get dessert pizza.
I was about to say, it's time for dessert
It's
pizza.
time for dessert pizza. I would just like to finish on probably the most important part of the podcast, though, which is I've had a really good time grading brick in America. I've got a new hobby of like brick grading. I've got an intricate algorithm that calculates the scores. So I'm looking forward to, after this, we'll go get some pizza and we'll grade some
brick
some
together.
brick buildings together.
Well, you know the algorithm, so we'll just have to listen
It's
to you.
proprietary in nature, so I can't.
Well-
I can't release it right now.
We'll witness your
And so
grading.
far, Boston is winning your brick score.
Yeah. See, number one brick city in the world is Boston. Brick,
hands down.
yeah,
Objectively.
yeah. It's just nothing. It comes even close. Number two, I would say, is Copenhagen.
And how many cities have you been to in America?
Well, he's talking world.
I'm on my third now.
So
but,
out of all the cities, you've been to 3, and you already know Boston's the best.
yeah, but
Do you think it's unbeatable?
yeah.
I've seen enough.
I'm just
Yeah.
wondering.
I mean, like
I've only barely been to Boston. We went to George Howell, right?
Shout out. Yeah. We didn't record a podcast with him.
No, we
Kirk.
didn't. My only interaction with George Howell, funny enough, we posted an Instagram story one time talking about or an Instagram reel one time talking about how blends are great and don't get the love, and especially, in my opinion, like in American and the world's specialty coffee, that they deserve whenever someone's doing a blend really well. And George commented and said, "Good way to keep farmers poor." And that was my only interaction with him. I didn't respond to it.
He's got some very strong fundamental views on that sort of thing, and he's a very progressive person, and I applaud him for it.
Yeah.
I do think we overblend in coffee, though. Like, especially in competitions these days, everyone's making a blend.
Really?
Like, they're blending two different geishas together, which to me just fundamentally don't understand, because do you get like the best Bordeaux and mix it with the best Riesling?
Do you?
No. So, that's something I fundamentally don't understand. I do think we overblend in that sort of category. But there's obviously some applications where it's really good. Don't 100% agree with George there, but,
Freedom. Listen, I'm not hating on him. I was just saying that's my one interaction with
But
him.
we need to be able to disagree properly.
Oh,
like
for sure.
there's nothing wrong with having a disagreement. It's just when it descends into
I'm starting to
vitriol.
disagree with you, so we're just going to actually cut this
Yeah.
whole thing.
Well, just on that, we had the same conversation around. So we name all of our coffees.
Yeah.
Like example, come on.
Ambrosia.
Ambrosia is a single origin washed Ethiopian, and we made that decision because we kind of landed on the idea that what is more marketable? It's when we name a coffee. And when we can market a coffee better, we can sell more of the coffee and we can buy more of the producer's product. And in our conversations with producing partners, it's like, what do they want? For their name to be on the coffee, or for them to sell more of their coffee?
And their name's still on the coffee.
and
it's
it
just
is,
not
yeah.
the title.
It's like that's still the story of the coffee. It's just the marketable name of it is better, and thus can help us.
Yeah.
sell.
But that's more to speak about the TikTokification of life, though. People have a very short attention span, and they can read something like that and gain more information from it quickly. Like, I call a blend strawberry cheesecake, and you don't need to ask any more questions after that.
Yeah.
Whereas if I have Ethiopia Danche grade 1 natural yoga chef, blah, 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 like with another coffee, so times that by 2. That's more to do with people's slower attention spans to me than it is, trying to bastardize single origin coffee.
And you're getting people to have that coffee, which is like a really high-end coffee, because of the name. And they wouldn't have got it if it was the full technical name.
Well, that's been one of the greatest failures of specialty coffee, right? Well, just how we present it. And it's not that we had bad intentions, it's just kind of how it landed. We look at matcha, for example, there's probably like 3 or 4 keywords with matcha. That is ceremonial grade, like you said, milled, Uji stone
Certified.
thing. That's it. That's like all of it. That's all you get.
I'm in.
And where coffee, there's myriad more nuance. 1,600 meters above sea level,
Right.
Katura, natural process, thermal shock, washed, whatever. There's just so much more to it that we've presented. And the typical brain can't comprehend it as easily as, ceremonial grade, not ceremonial grade. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's legit.
But we are going to have to wrap it up because I got to go wee again.
Hey,
Real
been
bad.
there,
That Gatorade has arrived.
Successfully hydrated.
So how do we close up the Valor Coffee podcast?
Well, we can all just plug ourselves. Do you want to tell people where to follow you? And then I'll say the same.
At elcapitano.kirk and at coffeeshow.kirk and at projectzero.coffee.
Dang,
so
son.
There you go. Hey, we're going to have 4. Ross is at Ross Walters. I'm at Riley Westbrook. We've got at valor.coffee and at Valor Coffee Pod.
Come on.
This is a collaboration pod, one of the greatest in the history of coffee podcast or podcast in general.
Maybe ever.
And we're here in Central Park.
Yeah. What more do you want?
How many podcasts do you see that go for what must be 2 hours now in Central Park?
None.
And we're about to go get a damn fine slice of pizza. So
Dessert pizza, baby.
all right, well
Thank you, Kirk.
let's wrap it up. It's been an absolute pleasure. We all met today, by the way. So that's been
fast friends.
Excellent, excellent meeting. So I love doing this in America. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kirk.
I'm gonna give this to you and go do an emergency wee.
I see it dripping.